What is economics? How would you define economics? Economics means the allocation of scarce resources by these three economic agents. We'll be looking at what allocation is, what scarce resources are, and these three economic agents. What does allocation mean? This means the arrangement of one's need in order of importance. This is called scale of preference. What does scarcity mean? Scarcity is when there are limited resources available to meet our present unlimited needs or desires. What are resources? Resources here refers to the factors of production, namely land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Each of these factors have their own rewards. What are these three economic agents? They are households, firms, and the government. The households are consumers, the firms are producers, and the government regulates economic activity. Thank you. What is
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the summer semester. And this is EAS 201, which is microeconomics. Okay, EAS 201, microeconomics. Let me enlarge it a little bit. All right, so um, our courses will be on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Our courses will be on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 to 12. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 to 12. Okay, I've put every information that you need on UZEM. Okay, every information you need is on UZEM. And so if you need to um, find out about my office hours, you will see them on UZEM. And if you have any questions, you would also see them on you can send me an email because my email is on UZEM. Okay. So welcome to this semester. In this semester, I expect you to study very hard. I expect you to study well. Okay. Because you just have about 6 weeks. The seventh week will be your exam, which will be between August 12 to 17. And so you don't have time to waste. Okay. So you would need to study very hard and to be at your best. Okay, so before we start today's class, let me quickly share um, the topics we are going to take a look at this semester, this summer semester. We're going to quickly take a look at the topics that you'll be going through. Then you can easily let me know via email or come to my office during my office hours if you have questions. All right, so if you look at week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6, those are 6 weeks they're meant to take. Okay. Then the seventh week will be your final exams. Okay. So today, this week is week 1. And in week 1, we are going to cover overview of economics, theory of consumer behavior, and individual demand. Okay. These are the three topics we'll be covering this week, which is today and Thursday. All right. And if you take a look at the assessment breakdown, your attendance is very important, which is 10 marks. Your assignment will be 40. So I'm going to be giving you about 3 to 4 assignments, probably 4. Then your final exam will be 50. Okay, and everything makes up 100. And like you know, for summer, there are no makeup. So if you fail, you fail. Okay, if you fail, you fail. So I would advise that you study as much as you can. I would advise that you do the assignment to the best of your knowledge. Okay, do it very well like it's an exam because it contributes to your your grade. And these are the topics generally from first, which is um, to this week to the 6th week. These are all the topics we will be covering. Okay, so let us go to our first topic. Let's go to our first topic. Okay, uh, by now you should have a you should have if you've taken a course from me, you should have an understanding of the concept, this concept, basic concept or basic foundation in economics, right? So, of course, you know there are different um, scholars when it comes to trying to define economics, right? By now, you should know that of Adam Smith, you should know that of Alfred Marshall, and you should know Lyndon Robinson, okay? And myself, I also made a definition of what economics is. Okay, so the first definition is that of Adam Smith, which says economics is the inquiry into the nature and causes of wealth of nations. Okay, and the reason why when you are also going into microeconomics, which is the second year, more like intermediate micro, is important that we establish the foundation because it's upon the foundation that you are able to learn the other topics under microeconomics. All right, so it's important to lay the background information, to lay the background knowledge again, so that we can gradually move into the concept of the topics under microeconomics, the topics under microeconomics. All right, so this is the first definition, which is by Adam Smith. Okay, all right. And I said he defined economics as the nature and the causes of wealth of nations. All right. So let's take a look at that of Alfred Marshall. Alfred Marshall defined economics as the study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. He examines the part of individual social action mostly connected with and attaining and using material requisites of wealth. All right. So I'm going to, as we go further, you will see how we branch economics, how economics is being seen from the micro perspective and how economics is being seen from the macro perspective. Okay, so Alfred Marshall defines economics as the study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. What about Lyndon Robinson? Okay, he defined economics as the social science that studies human behavior as the relationship between ends and cosmics that are alternative uses. So I usually say economics is a social science because we use scientific measures or scientific steps to arrive at the ways humans behave, to arrive at the ways that humans are being rational. Okay, so we use scientific procedures, okay, uh, to be able to examine how we react when there's the price increase, okay, or when there's a price fall, or whether it's an ostentatious good, or whether it's a normal good, or whether it's an inferior one. So we get to we get to use scientific procedures, okay, in trying to understand how humans behave, which is very important, okay, because scientific procedure has some steps: verification, data collection. Um, it has to be the study has to be replicable, okay. So, and that is that of Leonard Robinson. All right. And so let's look at my definition. I said economics means the allocation of scarce resources by these three economic agents. On this definition, there are four important concepts, namely allocation, scarcity of resources, and economic agents. Okay, so of course, you know by now, if you look at the video I played, that the reason why we are discussing economics today is because we usually say there is scarcity of resources. There's scarcity of resources because human wants are insatiable. We never seem to have enough. Okay, if we don't have enough, we'll always be wanting more of something. We always want more of something. All right, we always want more of something. And so, because of that, we do not always have enough resources to meet the needs of people. You remember that those resources have to be produced. Okay, so allocation of scarce resources simply means that you have unlimited resources because our wants, our human desires, our needs are insatiable. It never seems to be enough. Okay, and I said economics means allocation of scarce by three economic agents. From that video, I already stated that. What are the three economic agents? You have consumers, you have firms, and you have you could say the government. Okay, you could say the government, and sometimes you say the society, but consumers, firms, and the government. Okay, the government is the one that regulates economic activities, while individuals consume and firms produce goods and services. Okay, so I defined what allocation is. Refers to meeting one's need in order of importance based on available resources. This can be regarded as a scale of preference. I defined what scarcity is. Scarcity refers to limited resources due to unlimited human wants or needs. Scarcity can also be explained as when our needs or wants exceed the available resources. Needs are required for survival, while wants are not necessarily required for survival. Keep this in mind. Scarcity is the main core of economics. Okay, just like I mentioned to you that the reason why we are talking about economics is because the resources does not seem to be enough. And so we have to continually find ways to manage our resources to be able to meet our needs. And what are those resources? What are those resources? Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Okay, what is the reward for land? Is rent. What is the reward for labor? Is wages and salaries. What is the reward for capital? Is interest. What is the reward for entrepreneurship? Which is profit or loss. Which is profit or loss. Okay, which is profit or loss. Okay, you can see here that I said land entails all forms of natural resources, for example, agricultural land, mineral deposits, forest, sea, etc. I also said labor, in regards to human input, mental and physical, that goes into the production process. The reward for labor is wages stroke salary. The three, I said capital entails the physical tools or equipment used to produce other goods and services. This is known as physical capital. For example, buildings, machinery, factories. In addition, capital can also be human or financial. Human capital is the skills and knowledge of workers. This includes education, training, experience, while financial capital entails the money used to purchase physical capital and knowledge. The reward for capital is interest. And entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur brings together all factors of production to provide a good or a service to make a profit. The reward for entrepreneurship is profit stroke loss. Profit or loss. The reward for entrepreneurship is profit or loss. Okay, so That is the concept of when I defined economics. All right, you could see that I had to break down this definition into different parts: the allocation, the scarcity, the resources. Then we move to economic agents, which I already mentioned. I said there are three main economic agents, and they are individuals, stroke households. So when we say individuals, we usually households like a family, firms, which refers to enterprises or companies or organizations that produce goods and services, or that produce goods or that offer services. The individuals consume, firms produce, and the government regulates economic activities. Okay, I already mentioned that. Okay, so the role of the government is to provide a suitable environment in which the firms and the individuals both operate effectively or efficiently. Okay, so it means that they provide a conducive environment in which you have consumer surplus, in which you would also have producer surplus. It means both of those agents will be kind of happy. Okay, the firms will be making profit, and the consumers will be having value for the goods that they have bought. Okay, so I further said that in addition, because of scarcity, individuals are concerned with what and how to consume, while firms and the government are concerned with what to produce and how to produce and for whom to produce. These concepts are referred to as economic problems. Okay, so in economics, that's what we usually call economic problems. Okay, we term them economic problems because we tend to find solution to what the problem is. For example, individuals in which is one of the component of uh, the economic agents. Their main concern is, what do I buy? Okay, what do I buy? And what do I buy is determined by a lot of things. Do you have what to buy is determined by the resource that you have. And also they are concerned with, how do I get the goods? How do I consume it? Okay, how do I consume it for myself, or do I share with my family, or should I share with my friends, or how do I have access to the product? Okay, do I have to buy it online? Do I have to go to the physical store? Okay, I need this good. How do I get it? How do I get this thing? How do I get this product? Okay, and all those things that you are thinking about is within the confines of scarcity of resources. Is within the confines of scarcity of resources. All those thoughts that you have, what and how to consume, is within the confines of scarcity of resources. Okay. All right. So while the firms, one second. Okay. So while the firms and the government are concerned with what to produce and how to produce and for whom to produce, these concepts are referred to as economic problems. All right. So in economics, there are basically two branches. There are basically two branches in economics, which is micro and macro, which is macro and micro, which is micro and macro. All right, so let's look at what the micro means. Okay, let's look at what micro means. Now, micro means small, while macro means large or big. Okay, microeconomics means how individuals and firms allocate scarce resources. The goal of individuals is to maximize satisfaction, which is utility. Okay, so remember, you have micro and you have macro. So microeconomics deals with a small part of the society. We are not looking at a macro concept or a bigger picture of the society. We're just looking at the individuals and the firms. Okay, so what is the goal of the individual? The goal of the individual is to maximize his own satisfaction, meaning that everything he spent his money on, he wants to feel satisfied. He needs to have that element of utility. He needs to say, oh, I have value for my money. That's what it means when you say the goal of individuals is to maximize satisfaction. What is the goal of the firm? The goal of firms is to maximize profit. Okay, firms, in whatever that they do, they would like to maximize profit. Firms would like to maximize profit. That's the goal. Okay. On the other hand, what about macro? So microeconomics deals with individuals and the firms. Okay, deals with individuals and the firms. Deals with individuals and the firms. While macro deals with the behavior of the economy as a whole. Okay, it looks at the behavior of the economy as a whole. The objectives of macroeconomics include reducing unemployment to the barest minimum, economic growth, and stable prices. Okay, and stable prices. So that's the goal. While the goal of individuals is to maximize utility or maximize satisfaction, the goal of firms is to maximize profit. The goals of macroeconomics is to ensure the economy is growing, to reduce unemployment, and also to ensure stable prices. Okay, to ensure stable prices. So that is the concept of micro and macro. Micro deals with how individuals are able to how individuals are able to allocate their own resources in order to maximize the satisfaction. Micro also deals with how firms allocate their resources in order to maximize profit, while macroeconomics deals with the economy as a whole, and the objectives of macro include reducing unemployment to the barest minimum, economic growth, and stable prices. Let's see, let me share this link with someone who's trying to come to class. Where's the link? One second, I want to send the link to. Okay, so you understand the difference between micro and macro, right? So let's move on. Okay, so still under the concept of economic, we have positive and normative economics, right? So positive deals with what is. Okay, positive is based on fact. We sometimes refer to positive economics as positive statement. Is objective and free from value judgment. For example, inflation rate is 5%, or you say unemployment rate is 20%, or you say um, tourism, the number of tourists coming to Turkey every year is 10%. It's based on fact. So if you go and check the data, you're going to see there. We usually refer to this as a positive statement. Okay, refer to this as a positive statement. What about normative? Normative economics is what ought to be. Okay, is what ought to be. We sometimes refer to it as refer to normative economics as normative statements. It is subjective and based on individual values or worldviews. We usually say value judgment. For example, I make this example a lot. Guns should be banned in the USA. This is a normative statement. Guns should be banned in the USA, or inflation rate ought to be. Okay, inflation rate ought to be, or you say um, economic growth should be. Okay. All right. All right. So remember the differences between positive and normative economics. So positive economics, what is, and normative economics, what ought to be. Okay. Normative economics, what ought to be. Okay, so let's look at some of these graphs, some of our graphs that we use in economic models. All right, and you can see that shows a negative linear relationship. Okay, you can see that graph. And you could also see, kayakers, are you all right?
Yes, I'm fine, teacher. Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't know why you couldn't see the courses on UZEM. I don't know why you can't see it, because all the materials are there. Maybe you don't know how to do it.
I will fix it after.
Right, tamam. All right. Okay, so you can please mute your mic, kayakers. Mute your mic. Okay, so we take a look at this graph. Okay, if you've taken um, macroeconomics with me, you would have an idea of this, the introductory part. Okay, so if you've taken macroeconomics with me, the introductory part are more like the same. Okay, it's just that we are dealing with microeconomics. Okay, and we need to establish the foundation of microeconomics. Okay, so um, you are going to be having, we're going to be drawing a lot of graphs in microeconomics. Okay, when we get to the theory of consumer behavior, when we get to individual demand, when we get to market demand, when we get to indifference curve, when we get to budget line, when we get to, you are going to draw a graph. There's no topic that does not have a graph. Okay, in micro, a lot of graphs. So look at this graph. You should know when a graph has a negative relationship. Okay, we usually say that's an inverse relationship. An increase in one will reduce, whether, for example, reduce the variable of another. For example, look at y and x. If y goes up, x falls. Okay, that's an inverse relationship. What about positive relationship? A positive relationship here shows that y and x are moving in the same direction. It is we usually say it is a positive linear relationship. Okay, they are moving together. An increase in one will lead to the increase in another. And look at the third one. You will see y and x, for example. You will see that x is constant, means that x does not change if y changes. You're going to have, when we get to elasticity, you are going to have this kind of graph in elasticity. Okay, Look at the fourth one. You will also see that Y remains constant and X changes. You are going to see all these graphs, especially these two. Um, the third and the fourth one, you will see the graphs when we get to elasticity. You will see the graph when we get to elasticity. Okay. So, lastly, we'll take a look at model building and theorization. Okay. So, I talked about this very briefly I think in macro. What does model building mean? What does a model mean? Okay. In economics, models are usually constructed to solve economic issues. A model is a simplistic representation of real life situations. For example, we can ask the question, what are the major factors determining an increase in inflation in Turkey? Okay, then we try to construct a model to show or depict the major factors driving inflation in Turkey. As economists, we make use of data to, to be able to test our hypothesis. And hypothesis means a guess. Remember that we call economics a science. For economics to use scientific procedures to solve economic issues, it has to follow some procedures, and they include problem identification, hypothesis formulation, collection of relevant data stroke facts, analysis, interpretation, and discussion, and conclusions, recommendations, limitations, and suggestions for further research. All right. So, um, in economics generally, like I mentioned, we need a model. Why the reason why we need a model is because we need to solve a problem. And so we identify what the problem is. We try to guess what the outcome will be, which we refer to as hypothesis. We collect information, relevant data, we analyze, we interpret, and we discuss. And we conclude, recommend, and suggest areas for further research. Okay, so this is an introductory aspect of um, ES 201. And I mentioned that the reason why you need the introductory aspect is because, for example, if you want to start a car, before you start the car, you try to put a fuel in the car. When you put a fuel in the car, for the car to move, you have to start the car. You have to start from the basics, okay? And that's why we are going through all the basics. We define economics, and I mentioned these four definitions: Adam Smith, Alfred Marshall, Omni Robinson, and Abidemi Shomoye. I went further to talk about the definition by Abidemi Shomoye because I was able to break down this definition into different parts. Okay, you have allocation of scarce resources, you have economic agents, you have so I explain what the allocation is, I explain what the scarcity is, I explain what the resources are. The resources are simply the factors of production, which covers through land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. And you also know their rewards. I went through economic agents. The economic agents, individuals or households. The reason why we call them household is more like families. Okay, individuals or households. We have the firms and the government. The individuals, they consume. The firms, they produce, and the government regulate economic activities. They produce a conducive environment in which those agents are meant to operate. Okay? Then for that, on the capital, you know what I read. On the capital, for example, I mentioned about physical capital and human or financial capital. Okay, physical capital are goods that are used to produce other goods and services. Human capital refers to the knowledge, your training, your education. Financial capital is the money used to purchase physical capital, and we can say knowledge or and the element of human capital. Okay, the reward for capital is interest. And for entrepreneurship, an entrepreneur brings together all factors of production to provide a good service to make a profit. Okay, so what are these three? I already mentioned the economic agents, okay? And I mentioned that without scarcity, we won't be discussing economics, okay? The reason why we're discussing economics is because resources does not seem to be enough, okay? And that's why we are discussing about economics. And I mentioned that uh, for individuals, we know that they maximize satisfaction. For firms, we know that they maximize profit. For government, we know their role is to provide a conducive environment in which those other elements are meant to operate. So individuals, they are concerned with what and how to consume. Okay, the firms are concerned with what to produce, how to produce, and who are we producing for. Okay, we refer to this concept as economic problems. Okay, you know, micro and macro. Micro, this is like small aspect of the society. Macro looks at the society as a whole. Micro, how it deals with how individuals and firms allocate their scarce resources. Macro deals with how the society as a whole allocates its scarce resources. Okay, and positive and normative economics. Positive economics is what is, meaning it's based on fact. And we sometimes refer to positive economics as positive statement. It's objective and free from value judgment. For example, I said the inflation rate is 5%. This is a positive statement. Normative economics is what ought to be. Sometimes refer to normative economics as normative statements. They're subjective and based on individual values or worldviews. For example, guns should be banned in the USA, right? So let's take a look at the graphs in this model. Let's take a look at them and see. So we could see there are 4 graphs here, and I said you'll be drawing a lot of graphs almost in every topic. So you would need um, the element of this graph. You need to know how to draw them. Okay. Now the first one is a negative relationship. Like I mentioned, a negative relationship simply means as, for example, as y increases, x falls. Okay, that's a negative relationship. The second one is a positive linear relationship, which shows as y increases, x also increases. And what that means is that they are moving in the same direction. Okay. The third one is x is constant while y changes. Okay, I said you will see this in elasticity. And the fourth one is y is constant as x changes. Okay. And the last part I talked about model building and theorization. You need a model to solve a problem. And what are those steps? Problem identification, hypothesis formulation, collection of relevant data, stroke fact, analysis, interpretation and discussion, conclusions, recommendations, limitation, and suggestions for further research. Okay, so let's take a look at the chapter overview. Okay, I mentioned, I said when I was defining individual productivity is essential for the progress of a nation. So when I was defining that of Adam Smith, a free market system enables buyers and sellers to determine how they want to interact, with the government playing a minimal role in providing a suitable environment for interaction. And let me go to, so I said economics is regarded as a social science because it involves the study of human behavior and the concept of scarce resources and the choices that people make to allocate those scarce resources. I mentioned in 8 that scarcity is the main core of economics. 9, scarcity means limited resources, which arise due to unlimited wants and needs. 10, needs are necessary for survival, while wants are desires. 11, A scale of preference. So when I was talking about the allocation of resources, that's when I talked about scale of preference. Okay, scale of preference is the arrangement of one needs in order of importance. 12. Resources in economics simply means the factors of production such as land, labor, capital, and enterprise. 14. Positive economics is what is, and normative economics is what ought to be. 15. The three economic agents are individuals, firms, and the government. Okay? And I also put some further review questions for you to take a look at. Okay. Now, Kayakers, are you in class?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, all right. So let me ask you some questions. Um, so can you tell me what is the difference? Okay, what are the factors of production and their rewards? Of course, you should know that. What are the factors of production and their rewards? What are the factors of production and their rewards? You have an idea, Kayakers?
Factor of production. I have an idea, but
Tell me, yeah, it's okay.
no.
You don't know it.
Mm-mm.
You have forgotten. You have forgotten the factors of production we talked about in macroeconomics. Have you forgotten?
Yes.
Oh, really? Okay, I'll give you the first one. The first one is land.
Mm, I remember.
Okay, tell me, what's the next one?
Labor and
Labor
capital.
and
Capital.
capital.
What
What's the
else?
what's the fourth one?
Labor and capital.
Land, labor, capital, and if you think like a business person, if you own a business, how do you put that? How do we put it? So land, labor, capital, and enterprise. Okay, like entrepreneurship. You could see here. Look at number 12. It says resources in economics simply means the factors of production such as land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship or enterprise. You could say enterprise or you could say entrepreneurship. Do you understand?
Yes.
Yes. So those are the factors of production. And what is the reward for land? The reward for land is rent. Okay. The reward for labor is what?
Which?
Wages and salaries. The reward for the capital is what? Interest. The reward for capital is interest. The reward for what's the last one? Entrepreneurship is what? If you are doing business, what is it that you are going to make?
Benefit
So if you are doing
or
business, yeah, profit or
benefit.
we usually say profit. We
Okay.
say profit or we say loss. Okay, so if you are in business, it's either you make profit or loss. Okay, and also
Okay.
I also mentioned that what is scarcity? Scarcity means that human our resources are not enough. Okay, resources are not enough. You can mute your mic, kayakers. You can mute your mic. Okay. I also say resources are not enough because our needs, our wants, and our desires are insatiable. Okay, if they are insatiable, there's no way that we can have enough resources because we'll always be demanding for more. Okay, we'll always be demanding for more. Okay, so what else? Kayakers, do you have any question?
Yes.
Tell me.
When you talk about the model, I didn't understand about like the definition exactly.
Okay, um, we usually say that a model is um, a simplistic representation of real life situation. Okay, so we, you remember that I mentioned in class that we are social scientists, and so to solve social problems, the social problems could be things like maybe inflation, could be things like unemployment, could be things like economic growth crisis. To be able to solve those problems, we have to bring some variables together. Okay, although for your exam, I won't ask you what the definition of a model is, but I just need to let you know that in economics, we usually construct a model like a prototype. Okay, we try when we want to solve an economic problem, we try to get out, we try to find some variables that can help us to solve that problem. Okay, so we target some variables and we do an analysis. Okay, well, after doing an analysis, we come up with results. Then we try to examine what the problem is through those variables. You might not need to bug yourself over it, but a model is, we usually define it as a simplistic representation of real life situation. A simplistic representation of real life situation. A simplistic representation of real life situation. Okay, as social scientists, we don't go to the lab to go and test inflation. We are not 100% scientists. We are social scientists because I don't want to use the word 100% scientists. We are not natural science scientists. Natural scientists are the one who goes to the lab. We don't go to the lab. We test our hypotheses and our guesses in a model. Okay, kayakers.
Yes, thank you
Yeah,
so
yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah. So it's just to let you know that those are part of the ways we'll solve problems in economics. But for your exam, look, I'm not going to be asking you what a model is, so you don't need to put that in your head. But just have it at the back of your mind that as you go further in your studies, maybe one of your teachers might mention, "Oh, who knows what a model is?" Okay, what is a model? A model is a simplistic representation of real life situation. We try to solve an economic problem or a social problem by constructing a model. By constructing a model, all right? So what we will do is we are going to go for a 10 minutes break. I'm going to um, stop the call now. Okay. Do I stop it or let me just, let's see. So I'm going to stop the call now. Then the link I sent to you in 10 minutes, I'm going to come up again. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.